Hey there, I am Sanat Kumar Ramesh, founder and CEO of OpenTreatments Foundation. I'm also the father of this charming 3.5-year-old boy, Raghav. At the age of 1, Raghav was diagnosed with an ultra rare genetic condition. Since his diagnosis, I have started a nonprofit, raised a lot of money, and tried 6 different drugs on him, none of which have shown improvements to his quality of life. I'm continuing to push very hard on finding treatments for his disease, but unfortunately, I am alone. This whole industry is not interested in investing in my son's disease because there are only 10 patients worldwide. We belong to a group of diseases called rare and ultra rare diseases, where there are too few patients for any single entity to care about. There are many biotech companies that are continuing to invest in treatments for rare diseases, but then those diseases that get the attention are too small compared to the 7,000 rare diseases affecting over 400 million patients worldwide. So I started a new nonprofit organization called Open Treatments Foundation with the mission of creating a society where there's at least one treatment available for every genetic disease accessible to all patients on the planet. This is a very lofty mission, and we will achieve this vision by actually solving the fundamental problems that are preventing rare diseases from getting to treatments, and we will solve them using software. The first fundamental problem that we ought to solve is answering this question: how many patients does a given disease have? If you talk to patient foundations, if you talk to biotech companies, investors, the government, no one quite knows the answer to this question for all of the rare diseases out there. Even for a given disease, the answer is quite an approximation. But this answer is crucial for a biotech to invest in finding treatments for this disease. Why? Because this is one of 2 variables that goes into the biotech business model. So that projected revenue would be the number of patients you have per disease times the price of the drug. It's a very simplified model, of course, but this shows the enormity and the powerful value of knowing the number of patients you have per disease. How can we get to this number today? We can go find the data from ClinVar. We can go find the variants from ClinVar and use bioinformatic tools to come up with estimates. We can look at databases like the ARPANET that have scoured through the literature to find the number of patients that have been reported. But unfortunately, this is too underestimating. This is also quite a bit out of date. We can find Facebook groups where patients and parents of these patients hang out. But then this number is not trustworthy. There could be grandparents, there could be people that are not patients, that are just well-wishers hanging out of these groups, and these numbers are impossible to verify. We can go talk to clinical centers of excellence. These are hospitals that have seen and treated these patients, but then you have to go find all of the centers of excellence and hope and pray that they have seen enough patients to give you an accurate prevalence estimate. You can also invest quite a bit of money and hire a firm to do the market research for you, and they would look at a lot of these databases. They would talk to different people and arrive at numbers or estimates that we can hopefully trust. But it's so ironic because this is not a data that is hard to find. This is not science that we have to solve for. This is data that is already there in existing databases. For example, if you talk to a genetic testing company that has already performed the diagnosis, they should know the number of patients that have come through that have gotten a particular diagnosis of a genetic disease. If you look into registry platforms, natural history studies, clinical centers of excellence, they all have the data about patients that have gotten diagnosed with a particular disease. And so that is the platform that I'm hoping to build with OpenTreatments Connect. We will count the number of diagnosed patients using anonymized patient data. We will take data from all of the platforms, registries, natural histories, genetic testing companies, centers of excellence, anyone that has information about the patient. We will anonymize the data and share that with OpenTreatments. And OpenTreatments will aggregate, deduplicate, and count the number of diagnosed patients and display in a publicly accessible dashboard. Our goal here is to make this data freely and widely available to everybody that cares for this number. We are not interested in the business of holding the data hostage. We are interested in disseminating the data as much as possible and catalyzing new drug development activities in this ecosystem. We also got funding from the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to go build this platform and make it available for the community. The way we do this is quite unique, and this is where the anonymization comes into the picture. So if you want to count the number of diagnosed patients, you would go, say, for example, into a registry, get the data about the patients from them. In this example, John Smith has SMA, Jane Doe has ALS, and from a genetic testing company, we also saw that John Smith, the same person, had SMA and got diagnosed there, and then Suraj had sickle cell. We would take all of this data into OpenTreatments and then deduplicate and count them. The only challenge here is we will have to exchange patient private information, their first name, last name, date of birth, potentially city of birth, and other information with OpenTreatments in order to deduplicate and count the number of diagnoses. Well, this might be possible in a small controlled environment, but if we want to open the OpenTreatments Connect platform to the world, we have to do this in a privacy-preserving anonymization fashion. This would also make us compliant with HIPAA and GDPR and other privacy laws that could even potentially be invented in the future. So we have a technique of anonymization that we use that converts patient private information into bit strings. In other words, zeros and ones. And this conversion is a true anonymization in the sense that given the bit string, you cannot find the patient's name again. There's just a one-way mapping available here. And we use this anonymization technique to get just anonymized data into OpenTreatments and deduplicate and count. So for example, if there is a data provider, say, for example, Rarex or Matrix, they would take in the original patient data, first name, last name, date of birth, city of birth, diagnosis information. They would run it through an anonymization software that we would provide and convert it into anonymized data. They would then share the anonymized data with OpenTreatments for us to go deduplicate and display the counts. This is what I personally call true anonymization, where the original data is never transmitted outside of the entity that holds them. And from the anonymized data, the original data can never be recovered. And in fact, this technique that we use here has been widely used at a lot of different places and has also been recommended by the Privacy Preserving Record Linkage Task Force at the International Rare Disease Research Consortium. In this case, OpenTreatments will own the anonymized data, but the question is not about ownership. The question is about what we can even do with that data. There's only very little that we can do. We can only do statistics. We can find counts, distributions, aggregates on the anonymized data, but there's no way for us to know what the names of these patients are, where do they live. We don't have access to any of that information whatsoever. OpenTreatments will display the counts and statistics publicly on our website. We will share the anonymized data with select individuals on the OpenTreatments development team in order for us to be able to build the software and develop. We are working on several compliance and security initiatives at this point, but because the whole software is completely open source, we will have public security audits. We will sign and verify the software with SigStore, and we will have open code reviews to make sure there is nothing that is malicious in this piece of software. We will also conduct public HIPAA and GDPR compliance of the technology to make sure what we are building is true anonymization and that patients' privacy is put first before the data even gets shared with us. We have several patient foundations that have already signed up to share the data with us. We are working on getting more data providers onboarded into the platform. Our vision and hope is that every single data provider that currently has information about patients and their diagnosis would share the anonymized version of the data with us so we can go count and display the number of diagnosed patients on the Connect platform. If you are interested in either participating either as a data provider or as a patient foundation or as a software engineer that wants to help build a software platform or in any other capacity, please reach out to us. You can reach me personally at sanath@gpx4.org. Thank you.